joined today by Nzwa Shoniwa, who's the Managing Executive at Sanlam Umbrella Solutions. Going back in history, there used to be about over 10,000 funds in South Africa. That has over the years consolidated quite a lot until today we're sitting with just over 1,000. Obviously, there's been a massive move towards the umbrella funds, and Nzwa is going to explain some of those dynamics for us. Good morning, Nzwa.
Morning, Chris. So, I guess from the time I joined the industry, which was in 2010, you had a lot of standalone funds, as you rightfully mentioned at the beginning of this interview. And due to a whole host of reasons, but the top three being cost savings, flexibility in investment choices, and trustees wanted to transfer their fiduciary responsibilities to a professional board of trustees, they started looking at, moving their standalone funds to an umbrella fund arrangement. And simply put, what an umbrella fund is that an umbrella fund is a fund that houses a lot of small participating employers or small umbrella funds. And what you get in terms of the benefit from that is that it's much cheaper, obviously, than running your own standalone fund. But from our Sanlam benchmark research, what we've picked up as a main factor is that transfer of fiduciary responsibilities to that professional board of trustees that run an umbrella fund. And we did some stats earlier this year when we were preparing for our benchmark symposium, where we saw that in the last decade, the number of members in umbrella funds has more than doubled, and assets have actually more than quadrupled to just under $500 billion in assets. So that's obviously a big shift that happened in the last 10 years.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, you talk about the consolidation and the reasons behind it, with the fiduciary responsibility. How does compare the governance structure of what used to be the self-standing arrangement with the current umbrella funds? How does that compare?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Chris, because when you interact with trustees about transferring to an umbrella fund, obviously, one of the reasons that they are not too keen to move to an umbrella fund is that loss of control, and will they be able to still be close to their members from a communication perspective and an interaction perspective. And simply put, the way an umbrella fund is set up is that within an umbrella fund which houses all these different pension funds or participating employers, as we call them, you've got a professional board of trustees that manage the entire umbrella fund and carry the fiduciary responsibilities. But what we require is that each participating employer needs to have what we'll call a joint forum, and other umbrella funds would refer to that as a management committee. And remember, the responsibilities that management committee would carry is that they would still obviously decide on the structure of the benefits, for example. They'll still decide on the investment strategy that they want their members to, the default that they want their members to invest in. And they can also decide on the type of communication that they want their members to actually receive, and how frequent they want that communication to be shared with their members. So the whole argument around loss of control and not being close to your members is actually not the case. So within that umbrella fund where you've got the professional board of trustees, our umbrella fund at the moment is about 67 billion in assets and 4,500 different participating employers.
Wow.
To support the professional board of trustees, we've got different subcommittees. And within those subcommittees, an audit subcommittee, death claim subcommittee, they all support the board of trustees. So the structures are in place to make sure that there's sufficient support for the trustees. And then there's also obviously sufficient communication that filters through to the different management committees or joint forums. So, from a governance perspective, I think the one aspect obviously that's been highlighted by Treasury is around the trustees that sit on an umbrella fund. And what we would have in place is that you would obviously have your sponsor or employer appointed trustees on the umbrella fund, as well as your member elected trustees. And from our side, our member elected trustees are fully independent. These are individuals who've never worked for the sponsor, firstly. And secondly, what we run is that from an election perspective, we allow all the participating employers to actually cast a vote. So we would share, the 10 CVs that have been shortlisted, and each participating employer can actually make a decision or vote on who they would want the independent trustee to be. And on an annual basis, the participating employers have got the opportunity to meet the trustees, raise any grievances that they have, raise any queries that they have. So from a structural perspective, there is still full interaction with the participating employer or the management committee with the trustees, as well as with their members.
And so tell me something else. There's been a lot of talk about this two-pot system that's coming down the pipeline. How does that affect umbrella funds? Give us the sort of pros and cons on that as well.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk around the two-pot system, and I think a lot of misinformation as well around what the proposals currently are. The latest proposals is to look at an implementation date of March 2024. And from our side, again, referring back to the benchmark symposium that we did in June 2022, earlier this year, we decided to just get a sense from our members that we interviewed, how much they actually knew about the current proposals.
Right.
It was quite interesting in terms of some of the stats that we got back, where 40% actually had no clue about the current proposals, and just over 30% say that they'll cash in some of their savings. And I guess, the last response is probably a sign of the times, where over 40% felt that this was a good thing because members were struggling and they needed to have access to their money. So, from our side, the way we look at it is that the financial struggles of most South Africans, which is mostly our members, that they're facing due to the COVID-19 pandemic, have resulted in government engaging regulators and other key stakeholders to work out relief measures for consumers. That's where this has come from. And as Sanlam Umbrella Solutions, we believe that a move to a two-pot system with the dual purpose of facilitating early access to some sort of future contributions, as well as preservation of the remainder for annuitization and retirement, is definitely a welcome development, which signals a new era for the South African retirement industry. And obviously it would have an impact on old age poverty. I feel quite strongly that the two-pot system will have a positive impact on people's lives. It will obviously provide practical and responsible solutions to the real needs of our members. And you've asked the question directly around the impact of umbrella funds. I think from our side is getting our systems ready. It's going to be very difficult, given that current proposals now talk around some sort of seed funding for that pot that members can access. So it's not really a case of, we start from zero and then it's whatever you accumulate that you can access in 12 months' time.
Right.
So members, from an admin perspective, this is going to be quite challenging. Where members would want to access, we would have to keep at least 3 records for each specific member. And I'm sure you know from experience how retirement admin is already complex in our space, with, members are allowed so many withdrawals, tax-free during their working life. So this provides that challenge, and I guess from our side, it's again the cost of implementing these administration changes and the layer upon layer of legislation that's been included within our industry, how that cost actually affects members, and that's that's really where we've tried to highlight to Treasury that these costs would ultimately be pushed back to our members who are already struggling to retire comfortably.
Thanks, Nzwa. That's very interesting. Now, obviously, it sounds like the governance side is sorted out. The administration, obviously, it's a challenge, but that's all well in hand. So the fund seems to be running pretty well. One question though is, what about people? There's a big thing in the industry currently where there's a massive focus on the wellness of people, the sort of mental state, because there's been a lot of changes since COVID happened. We understand that. Now, it plays very heavily onto the human capital side of things. And is there anything from a fund's perspective that you can do to supplement that and to help people in some way?
Thank you, Chris. And I guess, from our side, with all the research that we've been carrying out, there has been a consistent theme, not only from members, but also from employers. That employers are considering that ideal suite of benefits and services that should be included for their employees, and they'd obviously prefer these benefits to be integrated in some sort of single value proposition. That's been quite clear for us in terms of the messaging that we're getting from employers. Now, this was actually one of the drivers behind the launch of our free virtual doctor and nurse consultations in December 2021. But however, from our side, the research also indicates that employees need additional healthcare benefits. As the pandemic highlights, now most of our members were not adequately covered, as you rightfully pointed out. So to share another stat from our benchmark, we saw that 51% of the employers that we surveyed believe that a holistic, integrated health and financial wellness program delivered higher productivity and staff happiness. So you can see what's now important from an employer perspective. And this number had gone up from 36% the previous year. But what you then pick up is that only 12% were actually using integrated programs. And this obviously reflected, a clear gap in the current services that are being offered via the umbrella funds. So between Sanlam Umbrella Solutions, the business that I currently manage, and Sanlam Health Solutions, we then decided to develop a set of health solutions that will be available exclusively to Sanlam Umbrella Fund members. And these offerings would allow Sanlam Umbrella Fund to offer a holistic retirement and health solution. And that's simply, being driven by the information that we're getting from not only our members, but also our participating employers. And just to give you an idea of, what we're looking to integrate within the Sanlam Umbrella Fund. So, as a first, one of the health solutions we're looking at is primary care. So participating employers can choose to offer their employees, the following benefits on a compulsory basis. So there'll be access to virtual care, and this is primarily geared towards immediately assisting members with medical queries or directing them to a physical health provider if required. Members would then get over and above that 5 physical nurse visits per annum and also 3 physical GP visits per annum. Obviously, the caveat there is that a member needs to be referred to the GP via the virtual consult service. So you start at the virtual level. And we're offering this at 20 rands per member per month. And the cost of health solutions out in the market. So if you do it via an integrated solution, obviously that's where you get the benefit of decreased prices. And then I guess the important one, which is linked to the question you've just raised, or the comment you've just made around how our members are post the pandemic, is that as a second benefit, we're also offering employee assistance programs. So participating employers can choose to offer their employees EAP programs at competitive pricing that focus on some of the challenges that we know our members are currently going through, which include stress, anxiety, relationship, trauma and telephonic counseling, family care support, face-to-face psychosocial services, as well as coaching. And we get some of these stats through Michelle Jennings' business, which is Sanlam Group Risk, in terms of the shift that's happening from a claims perspective. And obviously what we are picking up from that business and the claims stats is that mental health has become a big, big issue within our society. So that's obviously something that we've integrated for participating employers that they can offer their employees. And then lastly, the third benefit that we're also integrating is gap cover. So again, for those participating employers who've got their members or employees on medical aid, they can take up gap cover through the umbrella fund at very competitive pricing. But I guess the main one, from my side is those first two benefits, because what we are trying to do is assist employers to help their members. I feel quite strongly around the fact that we can provide saving solutions for members and spend a lot of time on the investment products that we put our members in and the type of returns that you want from those products. But from an employer perspective, if those members are not in the right state of mind, if their well-being is not being looked after, then all this that we're doing doesn't matter. And that's where this integration has come about, is that we are trying to integrate solutions that cover not only the savings and retirement aspect, but also cover the well-being of the member. And I think that's a very important one. We all know that happy employees will be the most productive employees, and that's where we want to partner with our participating employers.
Yeah, fair enough. And you're quite right in saying that. I think there's a lot of focus that's coming onto the individual. We used to many years ago be so group focused and averages, and you talk about the fund and you talk about this and that and the other thing, but we often used to forget that it's nothing other than just a collection of individuals. So yes, I see a massive trend in the industry that the focus is now absolutely narrowing onto the individual and them as an entity first, and then the rest. So
and you're spot on, Chris. I know you feel quite passionately around digital innovations that speak to the member. If I look at how we've set up the free virtual nurse, virtual doctor consult, is that this is directed to the member, where through the app, there's a button in the top right corner where they click, and that takes them through the portal where they are connected with that nurse, where they can then have the interaction. And that's where the industry is going. It has to be direct communication with the members, because ultimately what we are all trying to achieve is to make sure that we empower our members and create an environment where there's an opportunity for them to get those better retirement outcomes. And to get there has to be direct engagement with the member. And we also have to empower the member in order for them to achieve that.
Absolutely. And without going all Lion King on you, but it is a circle of life. So what I see in our industry is obviously we've got all these retirement funds and we've got all these new solutions and technologies coming massively into play. But all of those things also become meaningless if you cannot reach out and provide solutions to even our furthest of members. So it ties into creating that sort of network 5G, 6G sort of infrastructure even upon which all our solutions can run. It also then ties into the ESG investment side of things, because you've got to invest in that infrastructure to put the infrastructure there to be able to reach out to those furthest of members. So this is what I'm saying. It's all very much interconnected. It's like a spider's web, and hence my reference to Circle of Life, Lion King. But yeah, that's how it is. So I think we can still talk for days on the topic. It's a fascinating topic, and there's a lot going on. And I think we're both very passionate about our industry. But let me ask you, my last question is really your sort of future view, with all these things going on, all these massive developments and things, and what do you see? Where's our industry going in terms of umbrella funds and just in general?
Oh, thanks, Chris. I guess the main one from our side is consolidation. We are seeing now your bigger funds that would have never considered going into an umbrella fund, looking at what an umbrella fund actually entails and what the process would be. So we're getting a lot of inquiries from the big funds. So we expect the bigger funds to convert to umbrella funds for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And just as an example, our own Sanlam Staff Fund will be converted into the Sanlam Umbrella Fund effective 1 July. And that constitutes an additional 13 billion in assets into the Sanlam Umbrella Fund. So we will be moving from about 67 billion at the moment to 80 billion. So that's a massive shift or decision from a big fund. So that consolidation is definitely something that, it's a trend that we think will definitely pick up pace in the coming 2 years or so. And then secondly, I think umbrella funds will continue to position this integrated value proposition, which combines healthcare, wealth care, and self-care. And that's a theme that's come about, as we've just mentioned a few minutes ago, from COVID. Post the pandemic, there's a lot that employers are now dealing with from a member-employee perspective that was not really within their radar pre-COVID. And it's something that's important from our side and supportive for the employers to look at. I think healthcare, wealth care, self-care into the single value proposition is a theme that a lot of umbrella funds will be looking at. Obviously, I've already mentioned the steps that we've taken, within that space. Then thirdly, from my side, I think this fight for the most digitally advanced offering is not going to go away. We now sit in an environment where millennials now constitute the largest portion of umbrella fund members. So how you engage with these new members versus how you engaged 20, 25 years ago is very different. How they view retirement versus how 20, 25 years ago retirement was viewed is also very different. What they want to achieve from a retirement perspective is also different. So I think, digital innovation and the amount of investments that we need to make into this digital innovation is probably going to be the biggest focus for a lot of umbrella funds going forward. Then the other aspect is also around the fact that I think along with Treasury, the industry will continue to pursue better retirement outcomes for all. I think there's definitely been, there's definitely been a shift in terms of the relationship between the industry and Treasury. And the engagement is definitely much better than it was previously, where I think there's alignment around this common goal of pursuing better retirement outcomes for all. So and that's a good thing for our industry. And then lastly, the one that I feel is probably the most important is the issue around financial inclusion and transformation. I think umbrella funds will have to demonstrate exactly what they are doing from a financial inclusion perspective and a transformation perspective, given the amount of members and assets that are going into umbrella funds. So I feel those are the key themes that are going to play out in the future, and those are the key themes that most umbrella funds need to focus on. And to differentiate yourself from the competitors, you need to demonstrate to members and to participating employers in terms of exactly what you are doing along with the sponsor to address some of those challenges that we face. And some of those challenges are unique to South Africa.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah, you mentioned the millennials being the sort of lion's share of the membership of the fund. I heard a statistic recently is about 70% of the workforce are millennials. And I had a fascinating chat the other day with a behavioral finance expert where he's talking about, these guys are on different platforms. They're on these social media platforms, and we're not there as big corporates. We're not playing that space as of yet. And I think we've got to click our heels and get there very quickly, because they're taking even investment advice from places like TikTok.
Yes.
And that's scary stuff. So it, although it may not be an appropriate, or we see it as an inappropriate platform for us to be on, we have to get there and find some innovative ways of getting there, because that's where our customers are, that's where our members are, and we have to we've got to undergo a fairly big mind shift in being able to see these various platforms that they are visiting, that they're socializing on, where they're hanging out, and they need to start getting to them on those platforms. Nzwa, it's been an absolute pleasure. Look, we can probably talk for another 6 days, but I think we're going to run out of recording space. So it's been really fun talking to you. It's been very interesting. I'd love to chat to you guys more in the future, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time.
Chris, thank you very much, and have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.